Welcome. I'm back out in my studio. I'm feeling more upright and my vertigo is much better. So just taking care. One of the things that was occurring to me is that I think the major challenge for many of us right now is that what I call the centrifuge is spinning really fast right now. And I was remembering that old poem that has in it, the center cannot hold. And, my sense is that our challenge is that if we're not aligned and centered, whoosh, we get pulled off and distracted and, things, take us off. So my sense is that the great value of practicing the loop of awareness. So I love how my hands are going through with the light here. Ta-da! That the great value of shifting our attention is that it allows us to create a kind of internal tuning fork for ourselves, that we can find our center, in the midst of this. And I find that the practice of my loop of awareness is really invaluable for me right now, because just every second there are things pulling us off, both energetically, and in every other domain. So I also was reading, I collect these quotes on attention, as you may know. And one of the most recent ones that I saw is that, again, the quickest way to shift your reality is to shift your focus. And so the practice of the loop of awareness, where you shift your attention out. So probably right now you have your attention out on me because you're listening. And so bring it, like letting yourself receive the words and receive the energy and see where that wants to move in you. And then start that loop where you can be listening to me and listening to yourself. And that shifting of attention, I now really use as kind of it's my first aid. It is the thing that I do for practice. It's like my exercise. So it's the very center of what I come back to, is because when I shift, I literally am shifting my awareness that also then shifts my reality. So I wanted to invite you to just notice where in your body, when you bring your attention to you, where is wanting to receive attention. And then just let that attention drift. Like last time we were playing with water and all of the images of water. And so your attention can be like a spritzer. It can be drops of love. It can be a full-on jet spray. If you've got something stuck in you, you can just, on that and see what happens to your sensations. And then as you're letting your attention go out, one of the things that you're doing is refreshing your whole nervous system by noticing the incredible creation that's going on all around you all the time. So shifting, inside nourishing, outside also nourishing, because you're getting the nourishment of the creativity that's happening every second. So out my window here, I've got plumerias that are going boom, and then there's a little spider web that is floating on top of that. And I'm just imagining all of the different critters who are going on about their lives, and everybody wants to be alive, and life is continuing. And then bringing that back into you, to let all of that nourishment of color and beauty and light be altering your inner landscape, so that you're feeling full of beauty, full of light. So letting that shift occur a few times. And well, the thing I like to add to it, we're coming into fall now, and the oak trees love to drop acorns. And so I can hear them on the roof. And sometimes when they land over on, we have a little bit of metal, on the outside of the house, and they go bam, it's like, we got, so, all of the thing and all of the phases of life. So here we have things that are falling away, what in you is wanting to be let go of. So your inner awareness can be attuned to all of that without your having to think about it, simply by shifting your attention. So the other thing that, I mean, every week I have, it all occurs to me all at once, but what I want to select out of it for you is, what's the rhythm of your attention, the rhythm of your loop that is the most nourishing today? So we can play with it, kind of like we do with essence pace. So first, try letting your attention, your loop, go pretty quickly, from out there to in here, to out there to in here, to people that you can see, and then back to you. And then notice, and then pause for a moment, and then just notice the effect of letting your loop go very quickly. And then slow it way down, so that you're letting it like kind of ooze in you and letting it flow out there, and let it be much slower for several loops. And then pause for a moment and notice the impact. For me, going slower had much more impact, just in the sense of creating more breath, more ease. Now, the thing that I add all the time, but most people don't, is movement. So what's been happening, I think, from just the level of stress and fear and threat, is that people are moving less. So, and especially if, like, don't pay any attention to me, we go into that, the freeze or the faint state, to become invisible. So the other thing I want you to add with pace is movement. So when you bring your attention into you, your body wants to respond to that. And if you let yourself add movement, even if it's just a little bit of movement in your hands, it will make a tremendous difference in your being able to integrate and absorb that attention. And then when you let your attention go out, also let your body follow that, because there may want to be a you might want to stretch out, or there might be just a little wiggle that wants to come through you. So if you're playing with your rhythm and you're letting yourself add movement, I think you'll notice that the one of the effects is that you feel more alive. You feel that more actual flow of aliveness, because part of the practice here, and part of what we're up to, is that you're increasing your experience of being alive and the delight of actually being alive. So let yourself play with that for a little bit, of changing your rhythm as you're looping, and changing your pace until you find the one, and then letting your body move. And when you combine all of those, like even just this little bit of practice, I can feel like my toes started wiggling spontaneously. I'm really opening up the flow of aliveness. And then that enables me to meet life, not being drained, but being in that flow of giving and receiving attention that benefits us all. Because when I leave these calls, I don't feel at all drained. I feel much more alive and much more flow of aliveness. And there are these simple things that you can add that I think really make a huge difference in just the quality of how your aliveness shifts. So that's the first part of our exploration. You're going to have a little water. And now I'd love to have our card up for day, our integrity card. And I'd love for you to practice looping in to the card, playing with, faster and slower looping, and playing with the rhythm. Is it, more of a waltz, or are you doing ska? Whereas oompa, oompa, are you doing a polka? Are you doing classical music? So you're letting yourself play with the rhythm and the pace, and letting your body move with it, and letting that energy come into you, and noticing, like, I'm just noticing how I'm experiencing that smile that I see over there inside my body. So as you're looping, let me just read. I recognize, appreciate, and celebrate my whole body aliveness when I keep my agreements. I recognize, appreciate, and celebrate my whole body aliveness when I keep my agreements. And then there's a written here, and it's one of my all-purpose moves. So taking a breath, fear melters, and are my go-tos that I add to my loop of awareness. So shifts you into curiosity. How can I experience the increased aliveness that comes from keeping my agreements? Whew, that created a big wiggle for me. How can I experience the increased aliveness that comes from keeping my agreements? Beautiful. So let's come on back to the big group. I have a few things to say about this because, every time I explore agreements, I find again that most people do not understand the power of agreements and the structure that agreements give you for holding your aliveness. So when you don't keep your agreements, you basically are, I was just seeing an image of someone coming out of the bathroom with toilet paper stuck to their shoe. So that's kind of like when you don't keep your agreements, you're trailing your the debris into your life. And when you do keep your agreements, and this includes with yourself, because we think of agreements mostly being with others, but I found that something that I told myself that I was going to do, and I may not have written it down, but I kind of made an agreement with myself. And when I keep that agreement, I can actually feel, it's like a little inner fireworks or a little spritzer of aliveness that because keeping your agreements is really creating a blueprint for what you're wanting to do rather than I'll get to it, or it's on my list, and and it keeps you in a sort of a mush where you're not really effectively able to shift your awareness, to shift your attention, and to let your aliveness be present for the moment. So for me, agreements agreements allow me to use all of my attention in the moment rather than having to pick up things. It's like when I'm taking wash from one end of the house to the other because our washing machine is out in the garage. If I'm trying to carry all of them, they're going to be dropping and I'm going to trip over them. But when I have them in my handy little carrier that has wheels on it, I just can go right through the house. And I think of our agreements as being a very benign structure for holding our aliveness. And so I invite you, like just right now, think of, an agreement that's floating around because you haven't completed it. And just notice where it's floating around. Are you worried about it? Do you bring your attention back to it? Or you go, oh, I forgot, oh, and then it goes away again. So what I want to invite you to do is just grab that and write it down. So you're actually creating your own little carrier for it right now. And I have carried pieces of paper, but now I have a whole little section of my notes that's my to-do, which is my agreements list. And I'll just stick it in there. Like if it's like, call, like today, call the pool company and or call to fulfill my prescription. You think, oh, I'll remember that, but that's an agreement. And when you write it down, then you can look at your list rather than carrying it in your head. So let yourself, if you've written that down, then I'd like you to let yourself just do a little bit of loop of awareness and notice if you've increased your openness, if you've increased your insight. And and here's the other thing. We have this written on another card, but on your list, write a by when. By when are you going to do that? Because then it's not just adding to the pile of stuff that you're maybe going to do someday. So if it's important to you, write down, by the end of today or by the end of the week. So the by when is that kind of little escape hatch that a lot of people have, like, oh yeah, I'll get to it. It's on my list now. And so, I know people who have 5 pages of lists, but they just keep adding to the list rather than completing. And the great benefit of getting clear about agreements is that, for me, I have no inner debris. So when I look inside, I can get information rather than static. And agreements really add to my being able to inquire, get inner wisdom about making choices, about how I want to be spending my time, because I'm not having this huge backlog. As I was going to bed last night, on the news, the LA News, they were reporting on clearing up a hoarder's property. And it was stunning, the amount of, they did a drone view of the property. And I mean, it would have made me suicidal if I had to live in that. When Gay and I lived in Colorado, we had this very eccentric house on Kiowa Street, and it was built in not the last century, but the century before that. It was built in 1896 or something. And it was a kind of a Rube Goldberg, who had 2 stories. And when we looked out of the second story, we could see the house next door, who was a hoarder, and had newspapers on the roof, and so finally the city had to come and clear them out. So your unfinished agreements are like that for you, and clogging up your aliveness. So any one of those that you keep for yourself frees up your energy and is just incredibly worthwhile. And then what it does is make you reliable in your integrity, because agreements are really, to me, what I check. How is my integrity? I look first at my agreements. And if I got wobbles in my agreements, I have wobbles in other places. So there may be something that you haven't communicated, or a responsibility issue that you're working out with someone, but it is an indicator that something's wrong in your insides, and that's your little canary going tweet tweet, pay attention here. So I find that one incredibly valuable, because again, it allows me to be using all of my attention and my inner resources for things I want to create, rather than just catching up and and then putting a pile in one place or another. I don't know if you have done that. I've done that. Like, these are the things I'm gonna do, and then I make a pile of the things I'm gonna do, and then that's another pile. So, and then also I've found getting support. Like, I have folks who help me clear out the debris. And you could have like an agreements advocate or an agreements partner, where you could touch in with each other and, how are your agreements this week? And, what have you completed that you said that you were going to complete? And do you want to move the by when of that one? So that you're basically not lying to yourself. So if you're when in order to handle your agreements in a different way, it also you have to be authentic with yourself. Like, no, I didn't do that. Oh, I was going to do that and I didn't do that. And so rather than beating yourself up about it, like, oh, is there a feeling about that? Because sometimes I found I didn't keep an agreement because I'm still mad. No, and I don't have to keep an agreement because I'm still mad about it. So then, handling the feeling, or there's a communication, like, I kept my part of the agreement, but you didn't keep your agreement. So I'm not going to send that thing to you that I was going to send because I forgot, which is really, I never handled that I was mad at you about that. So your agreements can let you know what else is going on in your integrity realm that needs to be handled. And I find that just an incredibly effective guide as I go through my days. And now there's so much going on that I want to have my attention available, my presence completely available. So that's the integrity card for today. And then let's take a look at Present Connect Play, which I'd love for you to keep as a resource that you use on a daily basis, because it also is a great way to refresh. Okay. Oh, this presence is one of my favorites. Let your whole self turn toward what is happening. Let your whole self turn toward what is happening. So part of my early life, and one of the patterns that I noticed was most difficult for me to let go of, was my experience of, I can't believe this is happening. This cannot possibly be happening. And I would be using all of my energy to go, and be, offended and outraged and sad. And the whole act of turning toward, oh, this is happening, was also incredibly freeing for my energy. Like, oh, when I turn toward, then I can presence and reflect and be with what is occurring. So notice right now if your whole body is turned toward what's happening right now, or is there part of you that's off, thinking about what you're going to do next, or you're a little contracted with something that happened yesterday. So what would it be like to just turn your whole self toward what is happening right now? So for me, the places that go off a little bit are, I could go off a little bit with my ears, because my ears are very sensitive, and I can kind of go off into a sound that I hear or that I think I'm hearing. And I also, my, I can't believe this is happening. I get my judger, like, and so that one often just needs a little bit of love. And then I can turn my whole presence toward what is happening. And that includes what's happening outside, inside, and all around. So that is one of my favorites. And then connect. Connect is, give attention to where others' body and breath is open. Because see, most often, and I think especially right now, we're looking for what's wrong. We're looking for who's wrong. We're looking for what's wrong. But what if you were noticing openness? It's what we call favoring the opening. And that's a choice that we can make. So, and that when I'm out in the world and I'm doing presence, connect, play, when I'm connecting with others, what I'm connecting with is what's open. So I might notice, a change in a person's face, and I'll just remark on, I'll also open my own body so I can see their openness, and I open my own body. And then there's always something to that I can say, like, oh, I'm appreciating the flow of your, like, wow, you are so fast with this. How do you do that? And, I can appreciate something. So for me, when I'm giving attention to openness, that's almost always followed by an appreciation. And I think that appreciation is one of the most underused skills that we have. It doesn't, it always benefits. You can appreciate you can appreciate others, which is giving sensitive awareness. It's not rah. It's really allows you to notice just much more. And that nourishment of attention, I know that people feel. And even if you're not in the same space with, like, you could give your attention right now to somebody who's not here, and may not here on the planet anymore, but you can give your attention, your appreciation to them. And that also opens you more to being in the flow of giving and receiving love. Now, play. A play has one word, and it is exaggerate. And it's why play, that leads to play. I've had people say, what does that have to do with play if I'm just exaggerating? Well, most of our attention when we're in exogenous world is about, don't bring any attention to yourself. Just fit in, just be, don't let anything stand out. Don't be too loud. But when whatever is going on in you right now, like, notice something, a physical sensation going on, let yourself do something to exaggerate it. So like I can feel my shoulders are still a little, so I'm going to just exaggerate that. And then what can come up is you can go into a persona or something else will arise and you start playing with it. And also when people are in hassles with each other, and they are kind of doing with each other, just having them exaggerate that almost immediately turns it into play. And especially if you take the words out. So exaggeration is a key to play because mostly our brains are saying stop it. Our parents have said stop it. Our teachers have said stop it. Don't do this. But if someone comes along, it's one of the things that I most loved when I first met Gay. His motto is to fight fire with gasoline. So do it more, exaggerate. But and I would see him do these outrageous things with people, and I go, you can do that? And it all came from being willing to exaggerate and also being willing to, look ridiculous or, not have it all together. So that all comes with play. And it also opens up your whole body intelligence. So exaggerating, giving attention to openness and letting your whole body turn toward, that's a great combo for the week. And I love to put them together because you might have, well, I'll do one and then, but when you put them together, that's when they become very alive and then can interact with what's happening in your moment to moment life. So that's us for today. And I so appreciate you being here and sharing your aliveness. And I want to encourage you to just stay on the call and share and openly turn toward what's going on as much as you want to. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Mwah. Take care.